I feel better about the future already. All right, guys, we're live. Hopefully, we'll get some people to join us here in the chat. But ding dong, the witch is dead, Danny. Scott Frost is out. He has been fired by Trev Alberts. Hallelujah is my reaction. What are you thinking right now? What's your instant reaction to Scott Frost being fired?
This right here is why Mickey Joseph came here. Everybody knew if Nebraska didn't get off to a hot start, the writing was on the wall. And I'm not going to say I guarantee because we obviously don't know what went on behind the scenes, but I would be willing to put a fair amount of money on, Mickey coming to Nebraska with him having a meeting with Trev Alberts, basically saying, if things go south, you're the head guy because that would be the only reason why he would, in my opinion, want to come to Nebraska because the program is such a mess right now. Now, Mickey has a chance to show what he can do, and if he succeeds, and or at least has a solid season, because right now the entire program's a mess, then maybe he can be the head coach. Who knows? One thing that I will say is that Mickey Joseph is a damn good recruiter. So if this works out, I don't see why, you wouldn't at least heavily consider Mickey to be head coach.
Yeah, I mean, so is he the interim head coach? I didn't even read
That's
the.
what it says in the statement. Let
Okay,
me just make sure before I mislead
if
you
that's what it
all.
says in the statement, I'm sorry. I know that people. I love Scott Frost. I will always love Scott Frost as a player. I do not in any way, I don't hate the guy. I mean, he won the national championship for Nebraska as a quarterback. He's one of the greatest players that we've ever had. I will welcome him back as the state at the stadium anytime. But it was clear that this just wasn't going to work out. I'm sure he knew that. I think he was emotionally worn out. I mean, you could see it on him. We've said that a number of
Yeah,
times. I mean, I don't think he ever in his wildest dreams thought he was going to go. What was it, 16-31? Is that what he finished?
yeah, that is what he finished 16-31.
So I mean, it's just, but yeah, I mean, I agree with you. I do think that it was pretty. I mean, it was pretty clear Mickey was the associate head coach. So if this type of move was going to happen, he was going to get that opportunity. And you know what? I'm here for it because it gives us what, 9 games? Is that how many we got
Yeah,
left now? Yeah, 9 games. Oklahoma and the rest of the Big Ten schedule to see, if he can be the guy. Because I don't think that they're outside of Urban Meyer. I've said it before. I'll say it again. I think Nebraska should do everything they can to hire Urban Meyer right now. Get him from Fox Noon, big kickoff. Give him $12 million, $15 million. I don't care. He will pay it back tenfold. He's going to bring controversy. He's not a great person, but whatever. Let's see what he does. They can put clauses into his contract that hold him accountable. That hey, if you step out of line, a toe out of line, then you're going to lose this money and you're going to be fired for cause, whatever the case may be. If he wants to get back into coaching, I don't even know if he does. It was mentioned on the Dan Patrick show. I have no idea what Dan Patrick's sources are. I haven't heard it from a Nebraska
I'm very
source.
kind of wary about Dan Patrick's sources because
Yeah.
oftentimes he comes up with reports and there's no fire, but there is Dan Patrick created smoke. So
Oh no, I totally agree.
yeah,
Like if it's Steve Sipple saying it, I'll believe it. I mean, if it's like, Pete, is it Thamel?
yeah,
I read, yeah, he's a guy. I'm never sure if I'm pronouncing people's names right, if I'm saying them, but if he says something, I believe it. People like that, local reporters, I'm not gonna buy what Dan Patrick's, because that could be that could just be an agent that he knows being like, oh, I bet Urban would take that job. Like, yeah, maybe. I mean, if he wants to, the thing is, if Urban Meyer wants to be a head coach, I think this is going to be the best place for him. There's only a couple other places I think that would even make sense that are we going to be like in a bad enough situation. And one to me is if like Mike Norvell falls on his face at Florida State, then maybe that could come open and that would
mm,
entice Urban. The other one mentioned was Arizona State. I don't think he's going there. So either I think Nebraska. I'm not saying it would be a perfect fit. I know you're not enthusiastic, Danny, but let's just why don't you want Urban Meyer as the head coach?
I just think that he brings a lot of baggage with him, and I understand wins, and I understand getting players to play at a high level. But who's not to say that he won't leave Nebraska after 3 years and go do something else, and then we're back to square one again? He just doesn't offer the stability that I think this program needs. He's a damn good coach. Let's not
Yeah.
get that confused. He's a damn good coach, but for if we want to resurrect the program, if you will, whatever you want to call it, I want somebody with stability, and I want somebody, and I don't even care about the baggage. To me, it's just really the stability. We need
Yeah.
stability. We've had 5 coaches in 20 years, and stability is how recruiting pipelines are built. Stability is how you build a program. And I understand, people will say we gave Frost 5 years, but we just need stability. That's my thing. Stability is the word for me.
Yeah, I mean, I agree. I just think like I know Urban Meyer's not gonna wouldn't come here for a long time, and I have no idea at all if Trev Alberts would make that move, but I just feel like he's the one guy out there that would deliver what this fan base wants, what this program should be. He would get the recruiting back up and running in no time.
Yeah.
He'd probably get like 20 dudes from the transfer portal that can actually play. And honestly, if you brought Urban Meyer here, I bet you this team wins between 8 and 10 games next year. I honestly believe that.
Yeah, no, there's no doubt his track record. It's just to me, we need somebody in it for the long haul, and not like Scott Frost's favorite son, long haul, but like somebody that is willing to stay committed and build the program. And I just don't know if he would be that guy, because then say he leaves after 3 seasons, then you're dealing with this process all over again. I mean, like I said, coaching wise, I think he would be awesome. It's the stability that really kind of just worries me a little bit.
So yeah, it's interesting, this morning I did a post that I was just sick of the game. I didn't want to write about the game. I just thought it was pointless to
I
really
haven't done
talk about
anything.
it. I did one reaction basically where I said that this is one of the worst Nebraska teams I've ever seen, and so far it has been. Honestly, I mean, it's been bad. You played Georgia Southern at home. You gave up more yards than any Nebraska team ever has. You are the first team to ever lose at home, scoring more than 35 points. You were tied against North Dakota last week. You blew in. I mean, it's just this team can still turn around and make a bowl game, but through 3 games, it's been a terrible team. And Eric Shenander is terrible. I can't believe that he should be fired too. If Scott Frost is fired, his ass should be out the door too, because he's the biggest reason why. And the biggest mistake that Frost made was hiring him as defensive coordinator. I mean, he is a total moron. I mean, we saw. Does he even have? Do defensive backs know that you're supposed to be within 15 yards of the receiver when you line up? I mean, shit, it's pitch and catch. I mean, I can't throw the ball worth a damn, but I could have completed like 42% against Nebraska. And I literally can't throw the ball more than 10 yards hardly.
I think they do know. I just think they're being asked to play in a scheme. We have 3 safeties on the field. Like that doesn't make any sense to me whatsoever. I do think they know, but I think they're being put in positions to fail.
And that's what sucks for Mickey Joseph is, you have to play with that jackass as your defensive coordinator the rest of the season. I mean, that's not going to put you in a position to succeed, but I don't know if the other guys would be better, but can't be worse than Eric Shenander. It literally cannot be worse. So, I mean, I do believe Nebraska had the worst coach in the FBS and Scott Frost. I mean, his track record over the last 5 years is abysmal. That's why I could not understand people being like, give him more time. They kept bringing up Tom Osborne. It's like, dude, Tom Osborne, yeah, it took him 20 years to win a national title. He never lost more than 3 games. Scott Frost never had a 3-game winning streak. I mean, he was garbage. I think he's the worst coach in Nebraska history, like flat out. I know that there's probably people who had worse records, but like if you look at after, Bob Devaney and after Tom Osborne, like he was worse than Mike Riley, way worse than Bo Pelini, worse than Bo Callahan. He's the worst coach Nebraska has ever had. So good riddance, Scott, in terms of a coach. Great player. I love you. But as the coach, you were the worst. I mean, am I wrong on that? But
No, no, you're not. I love your how you tell it like it is, so to speak. But you're right. He was the worst coach in Nebraska history, and now I'll be interested to see where this goes. Like you kind of said, unless Shenander goes, I don't know if Mickey is going to do a whole hell of a lot better. But at least Mickey gets a shot to show what he can do. I mean, this is the reason why he probably came here. And now it's going to be interesting to see, what happens what happens next? Where's the coaching search? Because there is no more National Signing Day in February. There is, in theory. But now it's
Yep.
all about the early signing day and recruiting. So they need to figure out a plan quickly if they want to build a strong class and try to retain the ones that they've gotten. I mean, there are good coaches on the staff. They all just happen to be on the offensive side of the football.
Yeah, well, and that's the thing. This is another reason you made some really good points there, Danny. Because you're right. It's like signing period, early signing day is almost a couple weeks after the regular season. So if Nebraska's waiting till the end of the season to get a new head coach, this recruiting class is screwed. I mean, that's just sorry. That's just what's unless Mickey Joseph really knocks it out of the park, or unless he decides to stick around and be part of the new staff. I don't know. We'll see what happens. Maybe he'll go out and beat Oklahoma, and this team will go like 7-5. By the end of the year. And I mean, if that happens, then maybe he'll stick around and be the head coach. I mean, I'm not opposed to that. If I just want somebody who's going to be competent, who is going to motivate the players. It just seems like this team. You lose to Northwestern, right? And they, you think you would come back for your home opener. I understand the jet lag and all that. So, I mean, I gave him a little bit of a pass, but then it's like you have a night game at home. Everybody's been talking crap about you for this entire week, and you still can't get up for that game. And I mean, Georgia Southern literally led almost the entire way. I mean, it's not like Nebraska had the lead and dominated. They gave up 650 yards, man. These guys averaged like, 9 yards a carry against Georgia Southern? Like, it's bad. It was
the
bad.
the lack of press coverage or playing up to the Georgia Southern wide receivers was absolutely appalling. They had a
Yep.
10-yard cushion. Like I could have, brought my wheelchair out onto the field, gotten up in my walker, ran a route, and then had time to catch the pass and take my slow ass and run
Uh-oh. Lost Danny for a
to be
second.
found.
There we go.
The secondary was nowhere to be found. I mean, this defense was just awful. I have no idea what they were trying to play, but playing off their man is not the way to do it.
I mean, not that far, especially if you're not getting like any sort of pressure. And I kept seeing got number 7. I can't even remember his name. I should, because he seemed like he caught a bunch of passes, but it's like I'd see him toast somebody, and it's all a big surprise. It's a linebacker. Linebackers against receivers. I mean, that's going to be the receivers are going to win that almost every time, unless you get. I mean, yeah, JoJo Doman was different. He was a different kind of player, so I got playing him in that role. But trying to sit here and say like we're going to make 3 players into JoJo Doman, that's not how it works. You can't scheme things. You can't scheme players into what you want them to be. And this scheme just saw it was a scheme that worked in the American Conference or whatever conference they came to, because UCF had more talent. But in this conference, in the Big Ten, and now against the man, it's like this Nebraska team with Scott Frost, man, I don't even think they could finish like better than 4th in the Sun Belt. That's how crappy it's been. So I'm happy though, because I feel like now we're going to at least have a fighting chance against Oklahoma. I mean, I just don't know how you could have gone back with Scott Frost into this locker room. Like, let's try this again. Let's try it next week. Like, heads needed to roll. These guys need to know like that there's accountability. If you play like crap, you're not going to be on the field anymore. If you continue to miss tackles, if you continue to get beat, you let somebody else play. I mean, we can't continue to try the same things. And so I don't know. It'll be interesting to see what Mickey does. And but I feel like this team's going to be tougher almost immediately, with him as the head coach.
Until Shenander's gone, we're not going to have a fighting chance. The offense could literally put up 40 points next week, but the defense will give up 55. I mean, yeah, letting Scott Frost go was a piece of the puzzle, but until Shenander's gone, I just don't see us, getting anything done in terms of wins. And it's not going to be because of Mickey. I like the idea of putting him as interim head coach, but that Scott Frost is only part one. Shenander should have been given his pink slip right with Scott.
Yeah, I agree. I absolutely agree. I mean, he has been horrible. And I think, it's, if you think about Scott Frost, and he made a lot of good moves this offseason. I mean, Casey Thompson has proven to be a pretty good move. I mean, he wasn't the reason we lost last night, but keeping Eric Shenander was just beyond dumb. I mean, was beyond dumb this offseason. He should have just got rid of him. And maybe if you like the other assistants, that's fine. But this guy clearly has no idea what he's doing. And, he just got lucky last year. But even last year, when things were better, there were constant, 50-yard touchdowns, 60-yard touchdowns almost every single game. You can't do that. That's like, and it's like what you see when you see like a Big Ten team up against someone from the MAC. Nebraska plays defense like they're a group of 5 team. Like we're a Power 5 conference. We should be one of the best programs in America. Like we need to start acting like it. And I don't know. I'm really hoping that some competency at the head coaching position will help though, because I don't know what it was about Scott Frost, but he just was like deer in the headlights from day one. Really, from day one, it seemed like.
It's a lot of pressure to be the Nebraska head coach, and I'm not making excuses for him, but and I've said this before, I wouldn't want the Nebraska head coaching job, with the amount of pressure it comes with, and how you're always under the microscope. And I get that fans are passionate and things like that, so I can't even fault them. I just wouldn't want the job. It's a big ask, and whoever is the next head coach, whether it be Mickey, somebody else, or whatever, they need to be ready to coach under one of the hottest markets in college football.
Yeah, so I mean, I think that's the big question now. Is everybody obviously we got the move by Scott Frost. And let's just take a moment to say thank you to Trev Alberts. I mean, I think that this is why everybody's talked about, they have confidence in Trev Alberts. I have confidence in Trev Alberts. And I'm glad that he didn't, continue to have Scott Frost in there because of the $7 million extra buyout or whatever it was. I don't know the specific amount that it was going to drop down on October 1st, but I think this was absolutely the right move. This program, like going downhill was going to cost this program more than $7 million in the long run anyway. And so I think that they just needed to look at that, and they probably did, as an investment. I'm sure some boosters probably helped out, but even if they didn't, it was well worth the money to get him out of there as soon as possible. I'm just glad. I said that in my takeaways. That was one of my 3 takeaways this morning at HuskerBigRed.com from last night, is that Scott Frost should never coach another game for Nebraska. So thank you, Trev Alberts.
Can I just say this, and I'll say it on the record right now? I don't trust the boosters or Trev Alberts to make a big enough impact hire. Hopefully they prove me wrong, but I just don't see it. Sure, they have the money, but I don't see them making, the proper hire or the splash hire that we need. Hopefully, like I said, hopefully I'm wrong.
So yeah, I mean, that's really the big question. I did. I had my 3 takeaways when I was, said Scott should never coach another game, and then I also did another one that I put out 5 realistic candidates, 5 candidates that I thought are realistic, because I think people on Twitter are not being real. They're like, I saw someone who they talked about Dabo Sweeney last week after he signed his extension. They're like, oh, that means he's not coming. Like, dude, are you serious? Are you serious? He was never going to consider. Like,
no kidding.
Like, get a clue, man. And so anyway, and I had someone else, and someone commented on my list and were like, oh, if you hire a coach because one of them is Toledo head coach Jason Candle, he's like, that's a risk. Like, we're not in a position to not hire a risk. I mean, who is there any head coach out there that Nebraska could hire that's not a risk at this point? I mean, can you think of one?
No. And it's not even the coach's fault. It's just a situation he would be walking in. I mean, sure, there are coaches that are risks, but this is a situation that is not in a coach's favor right now. So this whole situation is a risk.
Yeah, I mean, it's I just don't think that there's any, it's not like you're going to get, I mean, I can't even think of anybody off the top of my, you're not going to get like Kirby Smart or Nick Saban. I mean, you could get Urban Meyer, who in my opinion is basically, Nick Saban. I mean, he's won 3 national championships.
Yeah.
He everywhere he's went, he's never won fewer than 8 games. I mean, he won at Bowling Green. He won conference titles at Utah. He took Ohio State, the team that Luke Fickell was the interim head coach of, and went 6-6. He took basically the same team, and a year later went 12-0. And the only reason why they didn't go to the Rose Bowl or the playoff or whatever is because they were on probation for a year. Because they took themselves out of the bowl mix because I don't think Ohio State thought they were even going to be. They're like, well, we'll just take the penalty this year. And then Urban Meyer's, I hate the man, I hate his guts, but he's such a damn good coach. He took him from 6-6 to 12-0 in 1 year. I mean, so I just think he's the only guy out there that's not a risk to me. You know, even I know he's got like personal risks, but like I know he would win 10 games at Nebraska. I know it for a fact.
I don't trust the boosters or Trev Alberts to hire a guy like Urban Meyer. I hope I'm wrong, but I don't see the big splash hire. I am preparing myself for a lower tier candidate. I really am. I just don't see it happening.
So who's a good? What would you consider? Okay, well, so my list. I just finished a thought. I guess my mind is racing, and we're getting some people commenting in here. So far, yeah, appreciate everybody hopping on the stream here, and it's great to. For most of us, I think we were all knew a change needed to be made. I'm not saying that I'm happy. I wish that it would have worked out, but.
And I agree with this comment right here. I mean, I really do feel for him as a man. Like we're not trying to bash him as a person. The writing was on the wall. He tried. He lost sleep for trying so hard, and it just sometimes things don't work out. And I think it's good for both parties, meaning the program and Frost, to move in a different direction.
Yeah, and they're just, maybe it was the pressure of the job, and he just couldn't. I don't know what it is. I don't think I don't think I do think he's a terrible football coach, but I do think that maybe he could go somewhere else. And, I hope he finds a way to become better and learns from this experience and goes to a group of 5 or an FCS team and has some success again. But either way, as long as he doesn't totally waste his money, he's going to be set for the rest of his life. And he can come back, to Nebraska, like I said, anytime, and we'll just not talk about the 5 years or the 4.25 year he spent as the head coach.
And you mentioned, who are some candidates, and this one is a little bit off the grid, but I've always really liked Jamie Chadwell just for his ability to build a program like Coastal Carolina. They've had success for sure. We just haven't heard about it, but Chadwell has been able to provide stability to that program and has, given them very good results. And he's a guy I wouldn't mind at all. I know he's a little bit off the radar, but I mean, you need somebody that can provide stability, build a program, and knows how to win in a difficult situation. Because Coastal Carolina, granted, they have great facilities and everything. I've been to the campus, I've seen it, but it's not like an Alabama or a Clemson. So Chadwell has the experience of building a lesser program, and we need a coach that knows how to build and win with the tools he's given. Because if you can get Chadwell and then get a competent wide receivers coach or running backs coach, or if he keeps Mickey and White, whatever, like those coaches know how to utilize a talent. It's more just about getting the most out of the entire roster.
Yeah, so Michaela Simon, hopefully I did not mispronounce your name. If I did, sorry. But I put in the chat, who just kind of throwing out who do people want as a replacement. So that's who they put up, Jamie Chadwell. And, he is a quality candidate. One thing about him is he's built multiple programs. He's coached, FCS, D2. He's taken multiple, basically, he's been to the D2 playoffs, the FCS playoffs. He's taken Coastal Carolina. I'm pretty sure he's won a not national championship, sorry, conference championship or he's at least gotten close. So, people they're kind of the favorite, I think, this year to win the Sun Belt. Are they in Conference USA? Teams have moved around so much.
And can you put up Black Star's comment for a second? Because Black Star agrees with me. I feel like he says, you guys are dreaming if Fickle or Urban Meyer are coaching. Fickle won't coach in the same conference as Ohio State. Urban, after Jacksonville, isn't coaching anytime soon. And please post this comment, Black Star, 15 more times so I can so everybody can see it. I would be very surprised if Urban Meyer's coming here. I'm not dreaming about it. I know many are. I know Chris is, and I love Chris, but I just don't see it. I really don't see it. And we can talk about Urban till we're blue in the face, and I'm sure we personally will about 10 more times. But I don't see Urban coming here.
No, I can't argue with that logic at all. I agree. I've said that people have, or I think that Trev
And
Alberts
it's not
should
just
not
you, Chris.
even.
I don't mean to like bash you
Oh
at
no, not
all.
at all, man, not at all. No,
Okay,
because
good.
what you're saying is makes total sense to me. I don't think he's going to come. I just think that Trev should try. I think he
Yeah,
should try. I don't think Luke Fickle's coming here. I don't think that's even. I don't think that Luke Fickle
no.
would even consider it. So I wouldn't even call him because the only reason that you're getting Urban Meyer is because he messed up so bad in Jacksonville that maybe he's like, this is my last chance. And I don't know. I just think that that guy like if you took him to make like let him come to he's going to be in Lincoln this weekend, man. Fox Big Noon kickoff. Let's see he gets all nostalgic and you throw a crap ton of money at him, you never know. But
Can we put up some more comments? They're kind of trickling in here, and thank you for all who are watching. Um,
okay, let's see here.
they
They
need to
need to
hire.
hire Urban Meyer. Okay.
All
So
right.
let's here's one. If you're going to piss away 7.5 million, should have waited a week to let him take the OU beating. The intern gets a
Yeah,
bye week to get things ready. But here's my point on that is, when you fire a coach, then it seems like you kind of the troops get rallied and you see like in the NFL, sometimes teams will totally suck, but the first week or two when they get an interim coach, they win. So maybe it's like they could get momentum under Mickey and catch fire. And because I don't think this team is devoid of talent, it just had a horrible coach. Army's coach. I'm trying to think off the top of my head what his name is. I know his resume. I think he would be okay. I just don't love it's just a whole different world recruiting from the service academies to Nebraska. So I mean, you would be having to get those diamonds in the rough, which you have to get at Nebraska, but I don't know about that one. Bo, how about that one, Danny? Bo Pelini. What do you
I
think?
mean, people have said Bo Pelini for
Bring
quite a
him
while,
back.
but his defense at LSU was miserable, so I wouldn't want to try that out again.
Bring him back. Bring back Bo. I wouldn't. We're desperate. Bob Stoops board golfing every day yet? Do you think? I mean, didn't Bob Stoops coach in that XFL or whatever that
He
other
did,
league
I believe.
was?
Yeah,
Why wouldn't he want to? Is he so loyal to OU though? I don't think he would coach at Nebraska. Honestly, I just don't. He's like because didn't he come back and coach OU last year in their bowl game
I
after
thought he did. Yeah,
Link? Yeah, I don't think he's coming. I'd try though. I like the Ohio connection. The boosters run the show. Money talk. Yep, that's what I think. Once Trev got the money, people were done with it.
but the boosters need to know who the candidates are. Like I feel like some of these boosters just are stuck in the '90s and shout at thin air about coaching suggestions. And yes, they're
Yeah.
willing to offer up the money, but the boosters have a lot of say in how the program is run. I just hope the boosters kind of have done their, homework on the potential names out there.
Yeah, it's can't be
And yes,
worse. What
I
do you think?
agree with Lord Raiden right here. This is
Yeah, why
another
would you
point
want
I've been
Urban Meyer?
saying. Yeah, yeah, this is a point I've been saying forever. Why the heck would
Because
Urban
he's
Meyer want to leave his cushy Fox Big 12 at noon job where he has to say about 20 words for millions of dollars
but
to
but
come?
look at the question though. It says why the hell would you want that mess? Not why would he want that mess? Why would we as fans want that mess? Because we would win the Big Ten West within 2 years. That's why.
Says
Guaranteed.
Chris. Says Chris.
Guaranteed. Mr.
Yep.
Stoops.
Was just
Yeah.
coaching this spring in the USFL.
Yep. Yeah, if it wasn't Nebraska, I think he might do it. I just think that I don't know. Yeah, great move. Go after Urban. I would try it. I just think you have to try. Unless you can get okay, if you can get Matt Campbell, I would take Matt Campbell. What do you think?
Ooh, I don't know about Gus Malzahn. I mean, he's an interesting kid. He's had success, but
Well, this
I
person's saying that Gus is because UCF just got beat down the other day. You're right. I bet UCF would hire Scott Frost back. That would be a good move for him and for them because didn't UCF just get destroyed by
mhm,
Louisville
they did.
and they didn't score for like the last 3 quarters? So
Yeah,
the
it was a
Gus
mess.
the Gus bus is driving right straight into the ground. But hey, man, he's going to be like Scott. He's going to take another hefty. That dude just goes places, gets fired, and gets like walks out of there with tons of money. So I wish I was Gus Malzahn and I could get fired like 3 times and get like 50 million for it.
Who was the backup quarterback in the NFL that was it Blaine Gabbert who got ridiculous contracts but played like two snaps? He's like the Blaine Gabbert of of the
I can't
college
remember.
football.
Nick Foles, or no, not Nick Foles. Mike Lennon. He got a lot of money. There's a few guys. Here's another comment. I disagree about the 7.5 million. Better to move on now after yesterday and bring optimism. I agree.
Yeah,
I just couldn't. There's no reason that Scott should ever have coached another game after that performance. Yeah,
us too. Us too.
I'm sick about it too. Yeah, it sucks. It really sucks. I am one of the hardest Kool-Aid drinkers. I thought the second year Nebraska was going to like contend in the Big Ten West, and look how stupid I was. I thought they were going to win by 25 points last night. Like legitimately, I legitimately believed that. If I didn't think that betting on like Nebraska jinxed them, or that just betting in general jinxes myself, that I'm not jinxed, I would have bet for Nebraska. I would have like laid money on Nebraska last night. That's how confident I was they were going to win. And I just was like, after like the first 2 minutes, I was like, God, you're so stupid. When will you ever learn, Chris?
Counterpoint, they get obliterated by Oklahoma and things remain in a tailspin. That could very well happen next Saturday as well.
But that's another point for Urban Meyer I was going to make earlier, because you get him hired now. You can let Mickey Joseph coach out the season. He can decide if he wants to get the staff and not, and then he can start recruiting. Then you've got your head coach in place by early signing day. You get his ass out there recruiting, and then your recruiting class isn't going to fall apart, because right now it's going to. And Malachi Coleman, we're going to have to enjoy him playing probably I hope he goes to USC. I bet he goes to USC.
That's
Dave
a name that's
Aranda,
been popping up a little bit, yeah.
I think that's as far-fetched as Luke Fickell, dude. I mean, if he was going to leave Baylor, why wouldn't he have left Baylor for LSU last year?
Maybe because he knew the writing was on the wall at LSU.
I mean, what do you mean?
I mean, oh, why wouldn't he have left for the LSU head coaching job? Are you saying?
Yeah, why would
Yeah,
you?
yeah, yeah, yeah. Okay, that makes
I
sense.
mean, I just think that guy could have basically, he could have had any job he wanted last year. I bet if he wanted Notre Dame, they would have hired him. So it's like, if he wanted to go to Michigan or whatever, like he could have basically any job he wants. So I just really don't see him coming to Nebraska, especially because, I mean, think about the Big 12 after Texas and Oklahoma leave. Like Baylor's going to be the big dog, and they're going to be in Texas still. So I would rather be any program in Texas recruiting wise in the Big 12 almost than be Nebraska, because there's just, Bob Stoops again. Let's think realistic. I say we go after Matt Rule. He's on the hot seat in Carolina. If you offer him $8 million a year, bam, new coach. Black Star again. You make some good points here, Black Star. What do you think, Danny?
I actually wouldn't mind that because a lot of times college coaches don't translate well to the pros, but that doesn't mean that they suck in college. I mean, look at Joe Brady. I mean, he was another one, actually part of Matt Rule's staff that didn't work out in Carolina. So I wouldn't mind that. He brought consistency to the Baylor program. He was a very, very high tempo type of coach, and that's something we need in the Big Ten. I wouldn't mind him. I mean, I wouldn't let I wouldn't let his NFL record tarnish what he did at the collegiate level.
I think my example is Steve Spurrier. I mean, he was terrible with the Redskins. He only lasted like 2 seasons, and then he went back to South Carolina, and they were like terrible. They were one of the worst teams in the SEC, and he finished out there. I mean, before he quit or whatever, got fired, he had 3 11-win seasons. So like,
how about Nick Saban? There's one.
Yeah.
Nick Saban, I think he made the right move by leaving Miami for Alabama.
It's crazy what would have happened if Drew Brees, if the doctors would have cleared Drew Brees. So, yeah, stop it for the morally bankrupt hypocrite Urban Meyer. If you immediately disagree, think back to sticking his hand up the co-ed.
That's the thing. We would be under sanctions within like 2 weeks under Urban Meyer.
Yeah, but Florida was under sanctions too, but you know what? They got 2 national championships. I don't think they care, and neither does Ohio State. So just saying, I'll take some sanctions.
We're Nebraska, not Florida and Ohio State. Florida and Ohio State, the NCAA looks the other way. Nebraska hasn't earned that yet.
Yeah, I mean, I think the NCAA is to the point where they look the
NCAA is a joke anyway.
Jason Brown, I'm not familiar with that name.
Can you give us a little more information, Mark? And then we can look it up.
We'll Google here.
We'll Google. Do some Googling.
Oh, It's the last chance you. That was a joke.
Oh, wow, yeah.
Good joke though. Okay, here's what about John Gruden? I've heard this name kind of bantered about. I think this would be horrible, but what do you think?
No, I mean he doesn't really have the track record. I mean, he did coach well in Tampa Bay, um,
I
and I don't know if that would be a good fit.
to me he would just be, I don't know coaches that can translate from like the NFL to college because you have to recruit your ass off. I don't think these guys realize that. It's like you can be the best coach in the world. And I'm pretty sure that Urban Meyer said this, but it's all about recruiting, really. If you can't recruit, it doesn't matter. Like there's a lot of really smart football coaches that only ever win 7, 8, 9 games because they can't get the talent there. So, like, as much as people want to say stars don't matter, blah, 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 they do matter.
They
There's a
do.
reason. There's a reason why the teams that top the recruiting rankings every year are the same teams you see in the college football playoff every single year. If your roster isn't made up of 50% 4 stars, you have zero shot of winning the national championship. Zero, zero, none, zilch, not happening ever. And Nebraska's not on that list. They're not anywhere near it. So I mean, it's a proven fact right now. No team in the last like 20 years that hasn't had a roster that's made up of at least half of it 4 or 5 star recruits. Not one of them's won a national championship, and I don't think it's ever going to happen again. What about Tom Herman, the former Texas coach?
Hmm. He had success at Houston, and he gives us a connection to the Texas area, which I think Applewhite has done a good job of trying to bring back. So that would also be a bit of a risk, but it would be one that I would be willing to take. I think because you know the good athletes, Georgia, Florida, Texas, like I get the point that fans say about wanting to keep kids in Nebraska home, but there's a lot of good athletes in Texas. There really are.
I mean, I think you do have to keep the best kids. I mean, your recruiting strategies always should be keep the kids close to home, keep the best kids in Nebraska. So when you get a Malachi Coleman, like, you keep him. I mean, there's been kids the last few years that Nebraska very much, would have been the best player in their class. But you also have to realize that you're it's limits. Like in Georgia literally, if the Georgia Bulldogs didn't want to have to go outside the state of Georgia to recruit a kid, they could recruit an 85-man roster just from the state of
Yep.
Georgia. Nebraska cannot do that. They can't even recruit a 25-man class. It's like I mean, and this year's class is a really good class, actually, the 2023 class for Nebraska. And there's like 10 3 stars, 10, 11, So, I mean, it's like you kind of have to be realistic about it. You have to go outside of this area. And I mean, the walk on program was great. And there was a lot of traditions about that. But some of that kind of started before there was the 85-man scholarship limit. And so you were getting walk on players. Or I mean, I guess after the limit, but you were getting walk-on players who, were kind of good enough to get scholarship offers elsewhere and were staying at Nebraska. Now it's mostly just like walk-on play. And I'm sorry, but if you have too many walk-ons playing, you're just not going to win anymore. It's just a fact of life.
Can we go to Jeff's comment after this? He because he mentions Greg Schiano.
Okay, where is it here?
It's down a little bit. Let's see. Jeff Patchell says Schiano would be great too, and he's interesting to me because he's
I
been able
like.
to take Rutgers programs and get the most out of him. As I'm watching Devin McCourty play today, and he also worked in New England with Bill Belichick, so he does have that well-rounded coaching experience, and he has been able to bring consistency to the Rutgers program over the years. So, I mean, I think he's a little bit of a tougher coach around the edges, but you know, he knows how to win football games.
So, come on, what true Husker fan would even utter the name Steve Spurrier? Because we beat down their ass in the Fiesta Bowl. Why wouldn't I mention Steve Spurrier's name? Anyways, um, Tom Herman, I think he would be okay. I would like Greg Schiano, but he's a Rutgers guy. I just don't see him leaving Rutgers for Nebraska. They should have made that move. They should have fired Scott Frost 2 years ago and then hired Greg Schiano. That would have been a great move because he is an overachiever. He knows how to recruit New Jersey, which is a kind of an under recruited area. Um, Here's an interesting one, Lane Kiffin. I don't see it. I think he
I
already
don't
has a
see it
better
either.
job
No, I don't see it
because
either.
the thing about it that people need to realize, go look at Vanderbilt's recruiting class last year. I mean, I'm pretty sure Vanderbilt had like almost a top 25 class. If you're in the SEC, you're like basically guaranteed to get like a top 30 recruiting class. So like Nebraska's barely sniffing the top 25. So why would I just don't see that as being a better job.
I don't see it either. But Tom brings up a good point here. He says California's got a ton of talent, and Nebraska would be more attractive um, in the Big 12 or whatever. And then he said it'll open up more than Southern pipelines. And I definitely agree with that, Tom. But I'm also worried about Lincoln Riley. I mean, Lincoln Riley can clean up the area pretty well. And so while I agree it opens up, those pipelines out in the West, we still have to fight for Lincoln Riley, with Lincoln Riley. And that's not a battle that many people win these days.
Yeah, I mean, I agree in a sense that like I don't think that Nebraska would be going out there like because the thing is Lincoln Riley is going to take the best players from
Yeah,
California. So Nebraska needs to take the leftovers. And there actually sometimes that like for whatever reason, California gets a little under recruited. I'm not sure why, or it seems like some of the California like if you look at late in the process, there's still like more California recruits who are taking visits in the fall and kind of seriously going through the recruiting process more than the East Coast guys. I'm not sure why that is, but it seems like there are a lot of athletes, and maybe it's because it's California is so driven with the Catholic leagues. It's not public stuff. I'm not sure, but I do think that Nebraska could get into those lower ranges, especially like with the UCLA's and some of those other kids, and find top five. It's not like you have to get. I mean, Nebraska does need to get more 4 stars, but you got to find those kids in the 300 to 500 range that or that can be developed into like playing like a 4 star, and like that's what Matt Campbell has done really well at Iowa State. It's evaluating talent and developing it, and that's Scott Frost did not do that.
correct.
Brom from Purdue. I think Brom would be awesome, but I don't think he's. I just don't think someone's leaving from inside the conference to come to Nebraska. Maybe. I mean, I would make a run at Brom for sure, but I think he would be a huge home run. But I don't see you getting him.
All of the good coaches in the conference by this point have cushy jobs. I don't see them leaving any of that.
Would Nebraska take a major? Here's Rousey. When Nebraska, I saw some people talking about it. Take a major risk and for the recruiting angle, go prime time. Prime time. Yeah, yeah. Deion Sanders. I would love it. I think he'd be an awesome hire, but I don't think Prime's coming to Nebraska. I think
And
he's waiting for the Florida State job to open up.
and I don't think the boosters would necessarily like it either. I would love it, but I mean, you know, a lot of Nebraska is still stuck in the '90s, so I don't see Prime coming here.
What do you think about Jeff Lebby, Oklahoma OC? That's what Carlton Banksy. I'm
That's
assuming
an
that's a.
interesting name because he like Carlton said, he's one of the newer upcoming names, and not newer upcoming, but one of the hotter names in college football, and he knows how to get the ball down the field. He knows how to put up points in a very fast paced Big 12. So that would be interesting for sure. I think he could bring that element to Nebraska. And you talk about some of the playmakers that we have recruited, you know, that that type of offensive style fits the mold that Nebraska is trying to trend towards anyway.
So Rick is calling us out on our recruiting. Don't give me this crap. Recruiting isn't all what it's cut out to be. Plenty of coaches have won championships with recruits that weren't in the top 25. Okay, when though? I'm talking about a national championship,
Comp-
not like a conference
yeah.
championship. Come up with one. There isn't one. You're not going to find one. Maybe. I mean, even Nebraska back in the day, they had a bunch of really good dudes. So I can't think of a single team in the last 2 decades where it's been the case, and it's actually proven. Look up the blue chip ratio, 24/7 Sports. Look it up. That tells you all you need to know about recruiting and who wins and who doesn't.
Right.
Bill O'Brien, he hates recruiting. He hates recruiting. I think he'd be a bad fit. He's a good coach, but
We need a coach that like lives, breathes, and sleeps recruiting.
here's an interesting name, Dan Mullen, because I keep forgetting about him, but 2 years ago, Florida was like had a shot in that SEC title game against Alabama, and they would have been
Yep.
in the playoff. I don't know, man. He did good at Mississippi State. What do you think?
I mean, he would be
He's
interesting because he would bring a lot of the Southern connections too, in terms of recruiting. I mean, I hate to say it, but Bo Pelini isn't coaching anywhere.
bend it like Beckham, throwing it back out there. Hey,
Yeah, because he
Bo's not
gave
coaching anywhere.
500. Yeah, because
Hey,
he
what
gave up
about
500 defensive yards. Of course, he's not coaching
okay?
anymore.
But how about this though? How about
Okay,
this? I say we fire Shenander and we bring back Bo as DC for the rest of the season. What do you guys think?
if it'll make the fan base shut up for at least like the rest of the season, I'd be happy at this point.
I mean, it can't be Carl Pelini. I wouldn't mind Carl back as the coordinator. For fuck's sakes, Shenander. How do these guys get jobs and keep them for 5 years? I mean, my God,
Because they're
that's
friends with the head coach.
Lance Leopold. Or I hope that's how you say his name. He's the Kansas coach. I would support that. I like that move. Do you think he? I mean, he would have to leave Kansas, right? Wouldn't that be embarrassing if we couldn't even get the coach from Kansas?
I mean, yeah, but I mean, yeah, yeah. I gotta go out and say that. Yeah, yeah, it would be.
but what?
It would be. Why
Why
is
should?
Shenandoah? That's what we're wondering too.
Who
We're in the
knows?
same boat.
He absolutely sucks. He is horrible. Like he's worse than like when you play on Madden and you're playing like pro and the defense runs the same shit every play. That's Shenander, just making it easy for you. Jamie Chadwell. I like Chadwell, and I think he would be a good hire. He was kind of. I thought he was actually going to get more traction last year when all those coaching jobs were open, and it didn't quite happen. But I could see him being in Nebraska. Just I don't know if he's going to like want to stick in the SEC because you have to think with these guys like Jimbo Fisher could be in trouble. Looking at what happened yesterday, Auburn could be open. So it's like
I don't want Jimbo either.
no, I'm not saying Jimbo, but I'm
Oh,
saying like if that if Jamie Chadwell eventually is like, oh, maybe I could go to Texas A&M in two
oh, okay,
years,
I see
or
it.
that's what more I like. If he's looking at his career move, like, should I go to like, am I going to take this is my one chance to be a big time head coach? Am I going to go to Nebraska? Alex Grinch, USC, DC. Yeah, I could see that. You know, I do think that there's a chance Nebraska's going to have to go find a guy who's like a really bright football mind, but isn't a head coach yet. I mean, Lincoln Riley, correct me if I'm wrong, had zero head coaching experience, right?
Yeah, no, you're right.
Bobby Petrino. And fun fact about Bobby Petrino. So people who don't know, I live in Helena, Montana. I'm the sports editor for the newspaper here, and Bobby Petrino was born in Helena. Interestingly enough, but yeah, he would. I've actually thought about him. I have no idea what he's actually. I think he's coaching at Missouri State right now in the FCS. I think he actually might have got him to the playoffs last year. So I don't know. He won at Louisville and he won at Arkansas, and then he kind of got in trouble with a. He either got in trouble for a DUI or it was like a co-ed thing. I can't
I think
remember.
both. I want to say both.
I think it was an affair. I think he had an affair, yeah, and then he probably was drinking too. I mean, who knows? But let's see. Yeah, breaking news: Scott Frost becomes an analyst at Alabama.
Well, if he wants to rehabilitate his coaching career, Alabama's the place to go. You look at the 2015 coaching staff: Mel Tucker, Mario Cristobal. I know I'm forgetting some names, but Alabama's a good place for coaches to rehab.
Yeah, and Lane Kiffin went there for a year before that, and that's what Bill O'Brien's doing. I mean, I wouldn't mind Bill O'Brien, but he doesn't like recruiting. So
And
that's
you
my
need to
biggest
be able to
worry.
recruit.
Yeah, he would be a good football mind though, if like. But Scott Frost couldn't recruit for shit either. So Mark D'Antonio, I don't think he's coming out of retirement, and I don't want to see his 3 yards and a pound of dirt offense back. I mean, maybe we have been saying Nebraska should run the damn ball a lot. He would run the damn ball a lot, and then our defense would be better though. That's for sure. So I'll say maybe. I won't say no to that. Very disappointed. This is going to hurt the Nebraska program. True Husker fans would support and stay with Frost, but no, this is the worst decision the program made. Frost is an amazing coach. I have to disagree with you, Trevin. I'm sorry. I like Scott Frost as a player. An amazing coach doesn't go 16-31. An amazing coach doesn't go 5 seasons or almost 5 seasons without winning 3 games in a row, especially when you have cupcakes to start the year almost every time. So, I mean, any competent coach would have went 3-0 against the schedule.
But I will say it's going to be interesting when Nebraska doesn't win 9 games its first year, and then the fans already want the new head coach's head on a stick.
Yeah, I mean, we fired I think this is the curse of like Bo Pelini and Frank Solich, because we fired those guys after 9-win seasons, and look at us now. We can't even approach a 9-win season. What about Hugh Freeze? I keep calling on Carlton Banksy, not on purpose. I'm just putting the comments up for the ones I see. I do like Hugh Freeze. He was the Ole Miss coach, and then things kind of went downhill there, but he's at Liberty now, and he started winning. I think he would recruit really well. He's kind of has the reputation of being a little dirty, but hey, man, it's the NIL era, so all the stuff he was doing was probably like legal. It's probably legal now, so who gives it? And Nebraska's got to get into we got to get into the dirt a little bit in the NIL stuff to win. Mark Stoops. I would love Mark Stoops. I just don't think I think Kentucky's a better job right now than Nebraska, don't you?
Yeah, I would say right now, yeah. They just came off of a bowl game. Did they win last year? I think they won.
Yeah, they went. Yeah, and they went.
Yeah, because Wandale Robinson kind of showed out that game.
Yeah, and they just beat Florida last night. Here's the worst part about Scott Frost. Lots of transfers coming up. Yeah, it is going to be. This roster is going to be completely turned over. That's the worst part about firing a head coach, unless Mickey Joseph, wins out. So I guess here's a question, and people can answer in the chat too. But what does Mickey Joseph need to do to become the permanent head coach? And I mean, is that somebody that we think can win here at Nebraska?
I'm not sure what he needs to do. I mean, I'm not sure because it's tough. It's going to be tough, and I think the odds are against him. I mean, maybe beat Iowa, maybe survive, go 2-2 in November, survive November if he's still around, and well, he will be because he's the interim coach. But survive November. I don't think they're going to beat Oklahoma. I mean, honestly, that November, and I'll say it again, that November slate with Iowa, Minnesota. Like if he can have a good month there, then I think he can survive.
Sorry, I put this wrong up one. I definitely think Joseph definitely has to upset Oklahoma to have any chance of keeping the job.
But I don't think it's going to be Joseph. I think it's going to be Ken Shenander bring his A game. I mean, I don't see it, but I mean, Mickey can score like 40 points, but that doesn't mean they'll win, and that's not going to be Mickey's fault.
Yeah, I agree. If he upsets Oklahoma and has a winning record, he might have a chance. I agree with that because, not every. I mean, there's been lots of coaches that haven't been big name hires that have worked out really well. Jim Tressel was one at Ohio State.
Mm-hmm.
They hired him. He was from Youngstown State, and the Ohio State fans didn't like that. But he worked out perfectly. So there's lots of moves like that. You just have to get the right guy. And for whatever reason, it hasn't happened. I have confidence in Trev Alberts, though. I don't know. I guess I don't really know why, because he hasn't had to make a decision like this before. But I feel like he's made the right decisions with the program. I mean, I understood keeping Scott Frost last season. The team did look better. And, if there was improvement this year, then sure, there would have been some justification. But he also made the right decision in terminating him and not waiting for the buyout. So hopefully he'll, make it. Sean Clark from App State. I mean, yeah, he has won some big games. I mean, beat Texas A&M yesterday. Mickey is a great and dynamic guy with no experience. I like him, but Nebraska is a beast of a challenge and needs a vet.
I just want to keep him, whatever on the staff, whatever position, or obviously wide receivers, but whatever coach comes in, I want Mickey to stay on the staff.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, it can happen. Deion Williams was the interim coach at USC last season. He was a really good recruiter, and they hired Lincoln Riley, and they got him back. And that was a big deal because Damani Jackson, who was like the number 2 or the number 1 cornerback in the country last year, basically committed because of Williams, Dante Williams. Sorry, I said his name wrong. Here's one I'm interested in: Craig Bohl. What about Craig Bohl? He's got Nebraska ties, won at North Dakota State. He's been decent at Wyoming. What do you think about Craig Bohl?
I mean, I think he could be a solid hire. He has shown that he can win where he's been. I mean, this is a guy that has a 150-83 overall career record. So the track record of winning is there. Coached, the defense coordinators and linebackers at Duke back in the 90s, won 3 straight FCS championships, most recently from 2011 to 2013. Not a ton of success lately. His last bowl was the famous Idaho Potato Bowl, won 7-6 last year with Wyoming. It seems like he makes a bowl game every other season, which isn't obviously bad, especially considering where we are now. But, um, you know, he would bring stability, but would he be able to take us to the next level? I don't know.
He's not dynamic. What do you think about Eric Bieniemy?
I
That's a
would
really
really, really, really like that.
interesting.
I would really like that. I don't know how he hasn't gotten
I'm not,
consideration for NFL head coaching jobs yet, but I would like it if he came to Nebraska.
Black Star and Bieniemy. Finally, you guys are thinking realistically. All the rest are damn pipe dreams. Okay, I mean, yeah, it is really crazy to me that Bieniemy hasn't gotten a job yet in the NFL. So maybe he would take a shot at Nebraska. I mean, the guy's got to be a head coach at some point. That would be. I don't want to say anybody is a home run hire because I probably said that about Scott Frost, but
That would be a very good hire. Let's just say that.
and Losi definitely agrees with Bieniemy. I mean, the thing though about Bieniemy, okay, here's the deal, and why it probably isn't going to work out because unless he's willing to leave his job with the Chiefs, which he's probably not going to do till after the playoffs because they're going to be in the playoffs. I mean, you're going to have to sacrifice your entire recruiting class for this guy. So I don't know.
At this point, we need somebody that can run an offense and score points. So I'd be willing to wait.
Yeah, and he did just turn around. He played at Colorado and he just turned them down. I don't know. Maybe we'll see what happens, but doesn't seem that realistic. I will miss the days in the Big 12 when they grounded and pounded. Yeah, the Big 12 wasn't a bad. I miss the days when the early days of the Pelini era in the Big 12 when Nebraska actually used to win the Big 12 North, and it seems like decades ago. I guess it kind of almost is, but Kevin
Yeah.
Wilson, Ohio State OC. Yeah, I could see that. What do you think about that, Danny?
I mean, we're kind of seeing, at least I am up in my area. Jeff Hafley, former Ohio State, was he the OC or the DC? Can't remember. I think it was
He
the
was the
DC.
DC.
But
Yeah, he was the co-DC actually.
he's not really turning out so hot. Granted, BC is a private school, so it's a little hard to recruit. But I don't know. I think wouldn't be the worst hire, but I don't know if he would be my go-to pick. Hire Gary Patterson.
Uh, that's kind of I'm gonna say that's mid. I'm very mid
Yeah.
about that move.
Are you up? Are you down with all the cool kid slang now, Chris?
No, I'm not. I actually just learned that word the other day. That's why I said it. I had to have my wife explain what it meant to me. So
Now he's going to be saying mid in all our YouTube videos for the next 2 weeks.
I saw people saying it last night, so I'm like, okay, I understand how it applies now.
That was an appropriate use. Yeah, the ability
Yeah.
for recruit. Look at the has been. Yeah, I mean, look at the defensive line. Our defensive line was non-existent, and our offensive line was better last night, but still not great. So I definitely agree with Court Files. I mean, we haven't been able to recruit on either side of the ball. Seems like the secondary and the linebackers have been the only position that we've at least been decent at.
We need okay, guys. No, I haven't finished the series, so no spoilers or anything. But yeah, we do need to get Saul Goodman to do an elaborate con to get Saban to Nebraska. That would be funny. Actually, yeah. Here's one though. Jim Leonard. He's actually one on my list. So here's my list. I said this like 5 times, and I keep getting sidetracked. Urban was on my list. I know that's not that realistic, and that we're split on that. Matt Campbell's another guy that's on my list of realistic candidates. Um, Jim Leonard is the third guy. Then I've got Jason Candle, who's the head coach at Toledo, and then
Yeah.
I've got Jeff Traylor, who's the head coach at Texas San Antonio. So that was my five guys. HuskerBigRed.com. So I don't know. Do you like any of those guys? Any of those guys do anything for you?
Jason Candle, I think, because I believe Frank Ponce just got hired by Miami, and he was their quarterbacks coach. So Toledo has a nice coaching pipeline. They are a program that's consistent despite not being one of the bigger names. So I wouldn't mind Jason Candle at all.
The thing I think that's interesting, I think, is so people are interested in Matt Campbell, and Jason Candle's kind of like the Matt Campbell before he went to Iowa State, because Campbell went from Toledo to Iowa State, and Candle took over for Campbell. Sorry, lots of C's here, but he won a conference championship at Toledo. Besides that, he's like 47-27, so it's not like he's winning a ton of games, but he's never had a losing season, and he's won a championship. And I don't know, he could maybe get us a foothold in Ohio, which I think if Nebraska's ever going to be good in the Big Ten, they've got to find a way to recruit Ohio and Pennsylvania better. And frankly, I think they should be recruiting up where you live, Danny, in Massachusetts, because there are some players up there. Michigan used to get a lot of them, and now they're not getting them as much.
Not Massachusetts, but New Jersey. New Jersey, I think.
Well, there's a few though. There's a few guys though, because Don Brown used to recruit a bunch of them to Michigan. There's not a bunch. There's like one or two every year, but like Cornelius Johnson from Michigan, who's going to go to the NFL, Zach Zinter, Louis Hansen, Quiddy Pay. Those are all guys that Michigan got from the Northeast that if Nebraska actually went up there and recruited, they could probably start getting some of those guys. That's all I'm saying.
Yeah. And Don Brown was the defensive coordinator for Steve Adazio at Boston College. So I think Brown is a New England guy, if I'm not mistaken, anyway. So
yeah, and he's the UMass head coach, which makes it harder. But yeah, that's how Michigan was getting all those guys, and it's not. I just think with Nebraska, you got to explore every avenue possible, But Brett Bielema, when Illinois beat us last year, I thought, man, I wish that Nebraska had hired him, because I really think that Bielema. I don't think he's like a dynamic coach, but I think he would be really solid at Nebraska.
They're tough, fundamentally, sound teams. Bielema teams are, and that's something that we haven't had in 5 years. What about Bieniemy?
Yeah, I don't think.
Yeah, I mean, if that were to happen, yes, absolutely, I would take that. But I don't know how realistic that is.
I don't think Dante will, because I guess Dante isn't the DC, is he, at USC? No. So maybe
Byron Leftwich, he was another guy I thought kind of got shafted in the NFL head coaching search, but I really do like Byron Leftwich. Excuse me. We need to recruit all the country.
Yeah, we do. You have to win, though. You have to win to do that. If Nebraska starts I mean, that's how Tom Osborne did it. They started winning big, and then they basically they started dominating people in the trenches, and, they started getting the athletes that they needed to win. So I totally agree with you, Toby Neal, but you have to win, and you have to you have to be ranked. You have to be sending guys to the NFL. You have to be at least close to the playoff. That's what kids want. They want to get to the playoff. They want to get to the NFL, and that's pretty much it. So if you can't do those two things, you're not getting good enough players to recruit all over the country. So,
and you have to establish your bases too, like certain areas where you can get a couple of guys just for, if nothing else, a safety valve, a security blanket, so to speak. That's not to say that these parts of the country aren't good, but it's always good to have a couple of schools that you can call and say, hey, we got player X, he's good, why don't you check him out, and blah, blah, blah.
So Zolma, all Nebraska fans who have screamed to get Frost fired, and before that, Bo, are what is wrong with Nebraska. Those fans are toxic.
Yes. Yes. Yeah. Because they're very loud on social media, and they start to tweet at the kids, and then these kids see, and then they see all these message boards and stuff. And, I mean, they can have their opinion, sure, but yes, they are extremely loud. And especially with Twitter, all these fans are making their voices heard by the day.
I mean, yeah, I think people need to not, tweet at players or recruits, but I think I'll say this. just because you wanted like Bo fired or you wanted Scott fired, I don't think that means that you're a toxic fan. I think there's a way to go about it, and be respectful, and you shouldn't be going after players or recruits, but like some of them do, or going after people like personally or whatever. But just
They
because
do.
you,
They do,
I
though.
know,
That's
and I know, and I disagree with those people too, but just because you want the head coach fired, I don't think necessarily means you're a toxic fan. That's all I'm
Yeah,
saying.
because you want somebody fired, I should kind of clarify. Because you want somebody fired, you're not toxic. But when you start tweeting at players' parents and recruits, and
Oh
tweeting
yeah,
at them, like
that's it.
that's the bad part.
That's asinine. Yeah, you should never tweet at a recruit or a player or whatever. That's bullshit.
Yeah,
Grow up, man.
Osborne.
Um, Art Briles. Oh yeah, Osborne inherited a championship program. I mean, yeah, but he still took it to the next level. I mean, come on. Let's. Are you trying to say that like Tom Osborne was just gifted a program, gifted championships? Like, come on, man. Like, I just don't understand this thought. Everybody tries to compare Scott to Tom Osborne. That's just there's no comparison there. It shouldn't take you 5 years to win. And I mean, he's had talent. He's had, I mean, according to the recruiting rankings. So that means that the recruiting rankings are off, and that Scott also doesn't know how to recruit talent. So whose fault is that? I mean, that's not. It's his fault. If this program doesn't have the talent to win, I mean, he's been here for 4 years. So like Nick Saban, if we had hired Nick Saban 5 years ago, because this is the thing, if we hired Nick Saban when we hired Scott Frost, we would have already won a Big West championship already. Like I guarantee it. It's a machine.
Yeah, and it's just a more of a what if. They said Osborne.
I,
I
I
agree with
think
that. I do agree with that, honestly.
I think that's revisionist history. I wasn't alive back then, so I'm not. But the people who were, I mean, Tom Osborne was under a crap ton of pressure, and especially in the '80s when Barry Switzer was kicking his ass, and then like he couldn't beat Miami, he couldn't win the. I mean, this is a guy who was winning conference championships. I mean, he won a ton of conference championships, and people wanted him fired. And so
Yeah,
people. So I think that saying that people. A guy that's had 4 straight losing seasons, like yeah, that's understandable. But I mean, I think that Osborne he might not have survived it, but that's just the way it is now. Matt Rule is a Big Ten guy who will be freeing up here soon. Would be a solid hire. What do you think about Matt Rule? We kind of covered that quickly, but I guess we did talk about it. But
he's had success at Baylor, and Baylor. The Big 12 in general is not a defensive-minded conference, and so I wouldn't mind him here at all. I think he'd be a good hire. I don't know if the pros were necessarily the good fit for him looking back on it now, but I would love to have him back at the collegiate level, and I think he could, at least make Nebraska in offensive powerhouse. Not to say that they lack offense right now, but there are pieces there for him to be successful.
so Scott Lucy's talking about Art Briles and Black Star, replies he's going to start his own podcast. He says because of it. Yeah, I don't know about Art Briles. I don't. I feel
Didn't
like we
he
should
come
do.
with a lot of baggage? Speaking of baggage, didn't he leave Baylor a mess?
Yeah, he did. Yeah. So let's see who else we got here. If Osborne had to put up with all the social media crap there is today, he wouldn't have lasted through the early '80s. And
Yep,
Osborne had some pretty crappy years in the
yep.
'80s. But okay, what's a crappy year? He never went. He never lost more than 3 games. So, I mean, if Scott Frost had, you know, 4 9 and 3 seasons, think about how much people would be cheering this guy. I mean, people are still defending him when he's 16 and 31. So what would they do if he was 36 and 12 or whatever?
Yeah. I mean, it is revisionist history, but I do think Toby is right.
But here's my point. I made this again. Like, I don't think that Nebraska is any more of a like. It's not more of a pressure cooker than Alabama or Michigan or Ohio. I mean, Ohio State fans literally wanted Ryan Day fired after they lost to Michigan last year. One time they went 11-2, won the Rose Bowl, and they still wanted him fired. Some people to this day. So Nebraska's not like if you think that the fan pressure is the reason the program's not successful, that's just not the case. It's just the coaches aren't good. I mean, it doesn't matter. Those other peripheral things, in my opinion, do not matter. Like there's every bit the same. There was more. Jim Harbaugh was under 10 times the pressure that Scott Frost was. Jim Harbaugh had 3 10-win seasons and another 9-win season, and they wanted him fired. And he had to reduce his salary 50%. Like Scott Frost had no results whatsoever, and he was still getting some. So I just don't really buy that argument. And I think that like iron sharpens iron, man. Either you're up to it or you're not. It's like the whole thing with like playing quarterbacks, in the NFL. They're like, oh, in my opinion, either the guy's good enough or he's not good enough. Like letting him sit for 2 years or whatever, it's not going to make that big of a difference at the end of the day. A guy can play or he can't play. That's how I feel about it. I feel all that other stuff is just like overblown a little bit.
I mean, yeah, but the fans are loud here, and I get that they're loud everywhere, but, especially now with tensions growing, fans do play a role in it, especially here. I mean, you know, they do play a role just like the fans play a role at Alabama and Ohio State. Our fans are just louder because we're losing right now.
So we need a coach that is defensive minded and it's a proven winner. I mean, I agree with that. I heard that was the Bo Pelini route, and that worked pretty well. I don't really care if it's an offensive coach or a defensive coach. They just need to find a good head coach. And I don't know. I don't think it's going to be one that we're all going to agree on, frankly. We'll see what happens, maybe, but I don't think it's going to be Luke Fickell. I don't think it's going to be Matt Campbell. I think we're going to have to go hire a group of 5 head coach or a coordinator that doesn't have any head coaching experience. I just think that's where Nebraska's at right now, unless you can convince Urban Meyer to take the job. That's the only elite coach I think we have a shot at.
And even then, I have my doubts, but we'll see.
Yeah, let's see some recruiting. Recruiting Massachusetts won't be worth much to Nebraska. Jersey, yes. I mean, it's worth it to Michigan, man. They've got multiple players on their roster right now that are going to the NFL. I'm not saying just Massachusetts. I'm saying the New England area. It's just under-recruited, and some of the bigger programs aren't getting there. So that's all I'm saying.
I would.
Ever heard the name Zach Zinter? He's going to be a top 60 pick in the draft this year and next year from Massachusetts.
Probably the only pick from Massachusetts this year.
No, there's a bunch. I mean, and Cornelius Johnson was from Connecticut. Kwity Paye was from Connecticut. Those guys are all getting – I'm not saying there's a ton of guys up there, but I'm saying that there is talent there.
New England, yeah. Massachusetts, not really.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. But it's not like – if you're in Massachusetts, it's not like you have to do that much more work to –
Yeah, I mean, curse of Bo Pelini is haunting Nebraska fans. Yeah.
I agree. Yeah. It is. I don't know what I think there's the curse of Bo Pelini and Frank Solich is haunting Nebraska fans, honestly.
Yeah, both those combined are not. Those are Nebraska's regrets.
Brad White, DC for Kentucky could be possible. Hate to see him leave, but he'll be a head coach soon. That would be a good move. That's the kind of person Nebraska, I think, is going to have to hire. I mean, I just don't think that you're going to get a big-time coach that's going to come in here and, like I said, unless it's Urban Meyer. I mean, I think there's going to be money, but you have to look at the other factors. And can you really win? I mean, Nebraska, I think it's going to be really hard for Nebraska to ever be anything more than like the 4th or 5th best program in the Big Ten. I'm sorry, but it just is. I mean, Ohio State's going to be number 1. Michigan is right there, and they will pretty much always recruit better than Nebraska. Penn State is in the same situation. I mean, Nebraska's never going to out-recruit those programs. It's just I don't see any way that it's going to happen.
I was just looking, and thank you for the 134 people watching. We greatly appreciate it. We didn't really plan to do this, as you could probably tell, but big news, often happens at a moment's notice, and especially after last night's horrible display against Georgia Southern. Now Nebraska is going to look to change course, and right now we're just kind of talking about coaching candidates, and Scott says no love for Sean Payton. That's an interesting one.
Yeah, Sean Payton. We'll see. Is Lincoln considered the Lubbock of the Big Ten in the eyes of recruits, i.e. is it too far from home when recruiting against Ohio? And I mean, I feel like Bo Pelini got some guys from Ohio, but you have to
It is
get
a
people
bit
there.
far, yeah.
I mean, Nebraska's far from everywhere, though, man.
Not
There's
Iowa.
Yeah, but Iowa's not any better recruiting wise. So
Look at our tight ends. Thomas Fedoni, wasn't he from Iowa?
yeah, I mean Iowa. I feel is
Council
like
Bluffs.
yeah, Iowa. I feel like is like Nebraska, where I mean every once in a while you get a few good players. It's all about having coaches who can identify them and then develop them, and that's something Nebraska has not had at all. So I highly doubt Toby Neal coming back here. I highly doubt. Oh, whoops, I missed clicking on it. I highly doubt we will ever see Meyer come to Nebraska, and why in his right mind would he really want to?
I like you, Toby. You're the only one that really
Urban
sees eye to
Meyer.
eye with me on any of this stuff, and I like you, Toby. So thank you. I'm in the same boat as you. I don't see him wanting to come here. I get trying, but I can't wait till we get a coach so we can stop talking about bleeping Urban Meyer. And if it is Urban Meyer, we could talk about him, during the season and as he's game planning. But
Yeah, we also need a coach who can get some guys on the line. I agree with that.
yes, absolutely. Especially
So,
defensively. Defensive line was atrocious last night, and not just last night. Like
oh,
first three
horrible.
games of the season, and
Yeah.
yeah, we need big upgrades on the defensive line, and it's very noticeable, particularly last night when Nebraska had no second level to the defense. Uh, the interior was Swiss cheese, and then it would just be green grass for the Georgia Southern running backs and the Northwestern running backs and the North Dakota running backs. So
Whole darn season, the defensive line. Yep. Bo Pelini won at least 9 games. The games we would lose were atrocious. Yeah, they'd be like 65-20 to Wisconsin, but I'd kill for 9 wins right now. You're right. I mean, I was there. I was worried when they fired Bo Pelini, but I wasn't that thrilled with Mike Riley though. But yeah, so just to give everybody notice, I'm gonna have to duck out here soon. I'm gonna have to get back on dad duty. Chris Peterson. Chris, this is funny. It's Chris Peterson with an EN. So the guy, not my name, but the Chris Peterson who used to coach for Washington. I think he'd be a good hire for sure. I
Boise
would take
State
him.
before that too, right?
Yep, Boise State. And yeah, call him up, man. There was rumors he was interested in the TCU job last year, I think. So I would definitely would call him. He's probably I might be corrected when I said that there's the only elite coach we can get is Urban Meyer. I would consider Chris Peterson elite. So I would
Yeah, he brought consistency to that Boise program, and he led them to
right.
several bowls over the years. And yeah,
But yeah, I'm from Sean. I'm from Boise. I agree with the Peterson. Yeah, I think he is an elite coach. I'd call him up today and be like, dude, I got 10 million in not in cash, but 10 million a year waiting for you in Lincoln, Nebraska.
I don't know. At this point, I think we would pony up 10 million in cash. If it meant Chris
Well, yeah, I
Peterson,
mean,
10 million in cash before you even walk through the door right now.
yeah, I could go. Peterson would get my blood. Yeah, Peterson would be a better fit than Urban Meyer. You're right. This is why we have these discussions. But I am going to have to be on dad duty here in a minute, so I'm going to have to duck out of here because my son doesn't respect the stream very well, so he'll just be yelling loud things in my face.
While we're still on the stream for these last couple of seconds here, if you're in the chat and you haven't subscribed to the channel and you want to, please make sure to do so. We've got great college football content. We may have coaching carousel content coming up pretty soon, and we always love interacting with everybody who comments and shares and subscribes. We appreciate it, and we really appreciate you guys watching today. I didn't expect, like I said, to do this today, but Chris is a great guy to work with, and I can't wait to have more of these discussions. Hopefully not too many, but
Sorry, we took you. How the Patriots doing?
17-7 losing to Miami, but
Oh man, I thought you were gonna say leading for a second. So
no, I mean, when did the
yeah,
Packers start? Are they playing right now? Are the Packers playing right now?
225. That's why I got on here now. And then yeah, I got to
225.
get my
Oh, 425 my time.
Montana
Okay.
time.
Yeah,
See,
yeah.
that's the best thing about. See, I got to move even farther west to Washington, so then I can start my college football day at 9 a.m. You know what I mean? Instead of
Yeah.
10 a.m. But
You can have that nice day hangover by the time Nebraska starts to play. Then you can follow
and
that up with an after morning hangover after Nebraska
Yeah,
concludes.
I agree, Miles. No matter what, I'm sorry if I do love Nebraska more than anything in life itself. I want this team to win, and like
Yeah.
I said, I'll never forget Scott winning his, helping us win the national championship. But so, are we still going to be on for our stream tomorrow morning, Danny? Because that's when we usually do our podcast is on Monday morning. So
I mean, we can. I think we said a lot here today, and thanks for everybody for joining in. But if we just kind of want to recap and not not maybe recap the game because I don't think anybody wants to recap that one, but maybe talk about standout players. Focus on the positives tomorrow because we've been moaning about the negatives for quite a while, and then maybe just a little bit more head coach discussion, but nothing too big.
yeah, maybe we'll talk a little bit more Chris Peterson, and maybe we'll put out a mailbag question on Twitter, and we'll see if there's some candidates that people would like us to talk about, and maybe we just can look at a few whatever we can just talk about whatever can help us get through the day, I guess, because the season's going to be long. But I'm excited that Mickey Joseph's in the in the lead position now. Danny, I know you've been a big proponent of his, so we'll see. Maybe in like 6 weeks, we're going to be sitting here like we got our head coach Mickey Joseph. So who knows? Maybe that's how we're going to be feeling 1 week from today. Because damn it, I tell you guys, in like 5 days, I swear to God, I'm going to have it in my head that we're going to beat Oklahoma. That's how hard I drink the Kool-Aid. Danny knows.
Oh yeah, he was picking a 54-17 Nebraska win last night, so or something crazy like that. And are 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 our Twitter handles at the bottom of the screen, Chris, or are they not?
I don't believe they are. So you can follow me at HuskerBR, and you can go ahead and throw yours out there,
And then
Danny.
you can follow me at Neb Cornholio, at Nebraska Cornholio. I have to give one of my friends credit for the name, but you can find me and all of my very well thought out reasoned takes at that account.
All right, everybody. Well, we will probably be having another episode of the stream very soon. So it was great to see all of you. And once again, go Big Red.